This is good old boy Mike from Sips, Suds, and Smokes podcast, and you're listening to Pop Goes Your World.
If you haven't already, subscribe on iTunes. And while you're there, please leave us a rating and review.
And now it's time for our feature presentation.
I'm Chris McBrien, and the pop culture from Generation X is everything to me.
And I'm Derek Myers, and I'm here to educate Chris on the great pop culture of today's generation.
Episode 199, 1985 Pop Culture Fantasy Draft. I'm Chris McBrien, along with Derek Myers. Welcome to Pop Goes Your World, the pop culture podcast for the generations. This week, we're holding our third pop culture fantasy draft. This time around, it's 1985. But before we get started on that, Derek, anything new in the world of pop culture for you, my friend?
Hey, Chris. Yes, actually. As per the usual, I have a handful of things.
Good.
And as we have discussed during previous episodes when we've done the fantasy draft, the drafting actually goes pretty fast. So I've got more than the usual number of what's new in pop culture for you. So let's jump right into it. So last week we had a very good friend of mine, Greg Martin, was on the show to talk about metal albums from the 1980s. And I got to think it was a pretty great show. I had
a lot of fun doing that episode. I thought it was great.
Yeah. And let me tell you, Greg has what it takes to be a podcaster. I can't wait to have him back on the show at some point in the very near future. So this first little bit is sort of a shout out to Greg. So buddy, this one's for you. Chris, have you, and I know you have you gone to any live concerts recently, say since the COVID stuff has happened?
No, I haven't.
But you are a fan of live music. You've been to live concerts before.
Of course. Going to see Elton John next year. So
nice.
Yeah,
very nice.
Yeah.
So my wife and I are also, not crazy live music people, but we go to see the handful of shows. And my friend Greg Martin sees a ridiculous number of live music shows. That's always been his shtick. When we were roommates at university, he would drag me to these shows. He's like, yeah, this band's going to be big. And I'm like, I never freaking heard of this band. And then like 3 years later when they break, he's like, we saw them. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, remember we went to this? So anyway, this one's for Greg. So as we have discussed before, I'm a huge fan of 80s music. And as is often happening these days, bands from the 80s decide we're going to cash in a paycheck and do a tour, today.
Cool.
We're going to get that retro audience.
Yeah.
Billy Idol and Journey.
Oh, jeez, that's awesome.
How's that for a bill?
That
Billy
is
Idol and
something
Journey.
else.
Yeah. So they're coming here to Toronto.
Really?
And
when is that? And
I think it's
they're coming together. Like they're doing the show together.
Yeah. I think it's the first week of March.
Oh my God.
If I remember correctly. And so I was not aware of this. And then we were hanging out with friends of ours earlier this week who are also big 80s music people. And they're like, hey, did you get the pre-sale thing for the Billy Idol and Journey concert? I'm like, oh my God, no, I had no idea. So I went on earlier this week and I was like, oh, looking at tickets. I'm like, yeah, these are reasonably priced. And of course, when I was doing that, I was working. So I didn't really have time to do it. Now, I learned something important about buying music concert tickets this week. So the general on sale was today, the Friday at 10 a.m. As most concerts are, it's like, this is the day, 10 a.m., music tickets go on sale. But the days before, you can get, like, if you have a special code, you can get a pre-sale. Certain tickets are released early if you're a fan, or if you have an American Express card, or if you're part of their fan club, or whatever. So my friend had forwarded me her passcode. She's like, I'm on the Billy Idol fan club. Here's the passcode. You can get in early. I'm great.
That's still a thing, apparently.
Apparently.
The Billy Idol fan club.
I unfortunately, I didn't get around to doing this until late last night because I had to work really late because I'm off on vacation next week and I've been working late nights.
Nice.
So last night, I log out of work and I finally decide I'm going to log in and buy these tickets. I had already looked. I knew exactly where I wanted to buy, what the price points were. I logged in to buy the tickets and they're like, I'm sorry, the pre-sale has closed. And I missed it by like 15 minutes. I had no idea pre-sales close. I just assumed a pre-sale happened until the real sale activated. But apparently not. Apparently pre-sales have a finite timeline lockdown. So this morning, they went on sale at 10 a.m. I logged in. I actually got the exact tickets next to the tickets where my friends were already sitting. So that worked out perfectly.
Nice.
So we're going to see Billy Idol and Journey in March. I can't wait. Have never seen either band live before, but this is going to be a great show.
That is, and I just want to interject because you're going to see Billy Idol and Journey. My wife texted me this afternoon, and she's like, "Oh, guess what? Air Supply is coming." I'm like, who cares? She's like, I care. I'm like, so you get to go see Billy Idol and Journey. I got to go see friggin' Air Supply. Jeez. Oh, man.
Well, happy wife, happy life, man. Do what you got to do to keep that marriage working.
Yeah, man.
Okay. So
I'm all out of love, let me tell you.
Oh, my gosh. Good pull. Good pull. Okay. So that was it for music. I got a bunch of TV movie stuff coming up for you. So First and foremost, here's something that you'd think we talk about more often on a pop culture podcast that we don't. Chris, when was the last time you sat down and watched a brand new episode of The Simpsons?
Oh, God. A long time ago. Long time ago. Yeah. They're still making them. I know that.
Oh, they are. And honestly, the quality is pretty good. Like, I think most people have written off The Simpsons, but if you haven't watched them in a long time, I strongly encourage you to go Sunday nights on Fox and watch them. They hold the new episodes are quite good. So last week, they had an episode that was essentially a parody of the Fargo TV series that runs on FX. There's been four seasons of Fargo, and they've all been amazing. If you haven't watched them, you should check them out. So they had this episode of The Simpsons that was like a Fargo parody, and I'm watching it going, this episode is great. And at the end, they're like, to be continued. And The Simpsons almost never does a to be continued. So it was a two-parter. The second part aired just this week. It is one of the best episodes of The Simpsons I've ever seen, especially in the last 10 years. And I keep watching the new episodes. So if you have watched and are familiar with like modern prestige television, if you watch the new series, the Fargo series and that kind of thing, this episode of The Simpsons is two-parter, is absolutely worth your time. Try and find it. It was fantastic. I couldn't believe how much I enjoyed it. And I'm kind of embarrassed to admit how much I enjoyed it because like the quality is pretty good. It has been pretty good. So I wanted to raise that one first. Speaking of animated shows, Chris, we have talked about this series previously on the podcast. Big Mouth on Netflix. Mm-hmm. Have you got around to watching any of these episodes?
Oh, yeah. So I think I told you I watched the first 2 seasons and then maybe like a week ago, I had nothing to do one night. My wife and I were sitting there, so I put an episode of it on. So, yeah, I like that show. It's good. Yeah,
they just dropped a new season, season 5.
Okay.
It's 10 episodes. My wife and I plowed through them this week. They are fantastic. The quality of this show just gets better and better. For those who are not familiar with it, Big Mouth is a story of I think it's 4 or 5 like sort of preteen adolescent kids that are just entering into puberty. And think basically, I tell people, think South Park, except if the South Park kids were just a little bit older. That's sort of the vibe of this show. And it's definitely R-rated. There's a lot of swears. There's a lot of very explicit sexual discussions. I mean, there's nothing on the screen that's inappropriate to see because it's a cartoon, but it is high quality. The voice work is great. They've got a lot of good guest actors doing the voices. Although I did notice in season 5, they've recast a few of the voices as other people have become a little more famous and probably weren't interested in coming back to voice work. But season 5 of Big Mouth on Netflix, solid pick. Watched it this week. Fantastic.
Nice.
All right. Last one I got on my list. We watched a movie last weekend. I've been busy. Yeah. Despite the fact that I've been ridiculously busy with work, prepping for my vacation.
Still had time to watch stuff. That's good.
Work hard, play hard. This is the play hard part.
There you go.
So last weekend, we watched a new movie that just dropped on Netflix called Red Notice. Have you heard about this?
Never even heard of it before.
It's got Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. It's got Ryan Reynolds. It's got Gal Gadot, who is known best for her role as Wonder Woman in the DC films. And it is an action comedy. And it is very self-aware and does a lot of wink-wink. It's like a prisoner/heist movie. And it's not wink-wink in the same sense as, say, Deadpool, where he is very well aware and breaks the fourth wall and talks to the audience. But it is very aware in the sense that it's almost like the characters realize they're in a heist movie because they're constantly explicitly referencing tropes that you would see in heist movies, and as they're experiencing them, they're like, well, if this was a movie, this would happen, and then sure enough it happens. And so they're able to either make a joke of it as it happens, or they're able to plan around it because they're like, in a heist movie, this is always what would happen, so let's do this precaution. And I mean, if you're a fan of Ryan Reynolds, which I am, this is a great example of his work. The Rock is. If you've watched the new Jumanji movies with The Rock, it's sort of that same vibe. It's like it's an action movie with comedy in it. That's a good way to describe it. And Gal Gadot has never looked more attractive than she does in this movie. Oh my God, she is easy on the eyes. There's a lot of visual awesomeness to go in this movie between Ryan Reynolds and The Rock and Gal Gadot. Like, this is an A+ cast just for the visual candy, but they actually do a great job. So check it out. It's called Red Notice. It's on Netflix now. I loved it. It was great.
Okay, I got two things for you. So recently we had to close up our trailer for the year. As you know, Derek, we have a trailer we go up to on the weekends. But sadly, this is Canada, so we have to shut it down for the winter. And my son and I, my 12-year-old, he and I went up together and we closed it up. And we stayed overnight one last time for the year. So I thought, well, I'll bring along a movie for us to watch. So we watched Stroker Ace.
Oh my God.
Don't tell my wife.
Sorry, how old is your child again?
He's 12. So
oh my God.
There was a couple of questionable moments. It's PG, but I mean, there's a couple of questionable moments. And
yeah, but it's 1980s PG, which
true.
is definitely not the same as today's PG.
But what I do is whenever like the bad scenes come up, I just start talking and I distract him for those parts because I know the movie so well. I know when they're coming. But overall, he liked it. You know, it's the fastest chicken in the South. It was so good. And
honestly, I've never seen it. I know of it. I've never seen it.
So I'm definitely going to nominate it for a future show.
Okay. Okay.
But my son, he thought Ned Beatty was like a total slime ball. Clyde Torkel. It's so good. He's like, Daddy, that guy's gross. And I was like, man, that's nothing. You should have seen him in Deliverance. But
yo, my.
Exactly.
Wee!
Exactly.
Wee!
My.
Okay. And then the next thing, this has a connection to 1985, our fantasy draft this year. Okay. So this week, Paul Rudd was named Sexiest Man Alive by People magazine.
He is quite attractive. I have no objections to that pick.
He's no Ryan Reynolds, and he's
got his own thing going. I mean, he's easy on the eyes too, and he's funny, and that goes a long way.
Yeah, he's no Matt Damon.
He's got great hair, considering
Matt Damon.
Hey, few people are Matt Damon.
Yeah, I mean, you love him. But anyway, so Paul Rudd gets named Sexiest Man Alive. He's 52 years old. And
wow.
I just wanted to point out, Paul Rudd is the same age as Wilford Brimley when he was in Cocoon.
Isn't he also the same age you are now?
Exactly. He is.
Why weren't you named Sexiest Man Alive? You're wearing an AC/DC tank top as we record this show. Chris, you are sexy. How did you get overlooked for this award?
I guess the question is, am I more Paul Rudd or am I more Wilford Brimley?
In order to preserve this friendship, I refuse to answer that question on the grounds that I may incriminate myself.
Yeah, we know the answer to that question. Oh my God. All right, here we go.
Here's your dad joke of the week.
Okay, Derek. Sorry.
If you're already laughing, I know I'm going to hate this.
Why can't her nose be 12 inches long?
Geez. I'm sure I'm going to regret the answer, but I honestly have no clue.
Is your mind in the gutter on this one by any?
Of course it is. Of course it is.
So it just get your mind out of the gutter.
Sorry, repeat the question for me before you give me the punchline.
Why can't a nose be 12 inches long?
I don't know, Chris. Why?
Get your mind out of the gutter. A nose can't be 12 inches long because then it would be a foot.
That sucked.
Well, it also can't be 12 inches long because then it would be my
I'm your head counselor.
I did not enjoy this anymore the second time.
What's going on? What's wrong?
Never seen it.
Oh,
Never
wow.
interested in seeing it. No desire to see it.
Interesting.
Was not interested at all.
Oh, I paid $200 for these shoes, but I mean on the best.
It's certainly tame by today's standards.
There's a very fat pair of pants hanging from the flagpole this morning.
It is not something I think I ever need to see again.
Oh!
Matt Damon.
Matt Damon.
Okay, bud, we're putting together two of my favorite things in the whole wide world again, pop culture and fantasy sports, and we're having a pop culture fantasy draft. The year is 1985, so we each have to draft a team of 3 movies, 3 TV shows, 3 songs, and 1 personal pick. So we're each going to have a team of 10 things, and then we're going to send it off to our esteemed panel of judges, Derek. and they're going to vote on, whose list they feel won the draft, and next episode we'll announce the winner of this fantasy draft. I think you have some catching up to do, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
You lost 1984 by a 6-1 margin, and then we expanded the court to 9 judges for our 1981 draft, and I took that one by a score of 8-1. So, one thing we've often mentioned before, that we always say that people's favorite year for pop culture is the year that they turned 11. And you mentioned last week something interesting, because you said 1985 is the year that you turned 11. So it's probably safe to say that you've got some fond memories of this year from a pop culture perspective. So I think you might do well. And we should also mention that the winner not only has bragging rights, we also get the Funko Fonzie trophy. So it's currently been sitting on my desk here for the last 2 drafts, but we'll see how it goes this week. I got to do the coin flip, so I'm going to do the coin flip right now. Derek, what do you call?
Well, one school of thought is to just stick with my guns. I've done tails every week, and I've only won once, but I'm going to switch it this week and go with heads.
Oh, it's tails.
Damn it!
I'm using a loony. A loony came up. Oh! Sorry, bud.
See, I thought if I just pick the same answer every week for the 10 drafts, in theory, I should win half the drafts. And now that I switched, it's like, damn it.
That's when okay, so I get first pick here. I
know exactly what you're going to pick.
I got to go with the obvious one. Got to do it. So I'm going to start off with a movie, and I'm going to go with Back to the Future. Back to the Future is my first pick, and that's a movie, and then it'll be over to you.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just tracking your picks here.
Every year, I'm writing them down as well. Every draft that we do, there's always like that one major pick. Like 1981 was Raiders of the Lost Ark. 1984 was Ghostbusters. It really comes down to who gets the first pick.
And again, I was like, well, if I can get Back to the Future, I got a chance. But I'm like, I'm already coming from behind on this one, so it's unfortunate. So before I go into my picks, let me paint a picture for you in 1985. So I'm born and raised in Toronto, big city, biggest city in Canada, thriving metropolis. I mean, obviously I was a young kid in 1980, so it's not like I was sort of venturing out of my safety zone. But when you grow up in a large city, you're exposed to a lot more things than, say, if you grow up in a small town, right? It's just, it shapes you differently.
Sure, of course.
In 1985, my father took a job in a small town in rural Canada and decided that, for the benefit of the family, we would move to where his job was, which we did. So for the majority of the year of 1985, we left Toronto, which is a city population in the millions and was back then also in the millions. And we moved to a town that had like a population of like 1,000. So as a young, impressionable 11-year-old, this really changes the way that you perceive the world. And I think that it in the very best ways had a very strong shaping on how I perceive the world around me. And so 1985 is a very important year for me because we moved at the very end of the school year, which would have been like the middle of June. So the summer of 1985 and the fall of 1985, which is when the majority of the movies came out, when the majority of the TV shows debuted, and when a lot of the big songs came out, I was now in a very different place in my life, geographically and just mentally. And so for me, as you mentioned previously, when you're 11 years old, the pop culture really has a strong impact on you. And even more so than normal, 1985, it just coincidentally happened to be when I was 11, but this drastic change in where I moved, like where I was living, very much shaped who I am. And I think the pop culture was a huge part of that. And so with that in mind, it's definitely going to influence my picks, and it's definitely influenced sort of like, where I'm going with this. So,
cool.
Anyway, I figured I'd provide a little background on that. Sure. And when we get to the 1988 draft, I have a whole bunch of other stuff about that, but we'll talk about that.
That'll be a fun one too.
Okay. So I believe that there are a handful of fantastic movies from this year. Mm-hmm. And then I figure the TV shows and the music, there's a lot of good choices. So Back to the Future, I think, is the clincher. I think this is giving you a huge leg up. So I think in order for me to compete, I got to stick in the movie category. Mm-hmm. I'm going to pick what, in my mind, is one of the absolute most quintessential 80s movies picks, and is definitely representative of what was happening in the world around us in 1985. And I'm going with Rocky IV.
Oh, wow. because of the Russian angle of things.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, because they went over to Russia and did that. Yeah, definitely. Oh, that's a good pick. Yeah. I think you make a good point, because movies in 1985 are like they're pretty important. I think it was a really important part of it, even more important than the TV shows and the songs. So, no, that's good. Rocky IV is a good one. And did you see Rocky IV in the theater when it came out when you were 11?
Oh, of course I did. Absolutely. I've seen it on video a bunch of times. I mean, you look at it now, and it's a ridiculous piece of American propaganda about, just Americans will win no matter what. But it's like it's so cheesy, but so indicative of the time when it came out. This idea of the, just the whole Rocky mythology of like Rocky's gonna, he's the underdog and he's gonna beat them. And it's got so many tropes that have now become commonplace, which in the 80s, especially in 1985, in some cases, this is the first time you saw some of that. And so you look at it now and you go, oh man, like that's super cheese. But at the time, it was in many cases the first time some of this had been done. So no,
and it was all U.S. versus Russia back then.
Oh, of course it was.
So it's just so indicative of the times. That's a good one.
Of course.
Okay, back to me. I think, just like you've said, movies were the driving force in this year. I think so. I'm going to stick with movies. I just cannot decide which of these two I want to go with. I think I'm going to go with The Goonies.
I figured you would.
So The Goonies will be my second pick. I'm going to go with a second movie, and then I only have one more movie to get. So, okay, I'm going to go with The Goonies. Love this movie. Actually, I went to see this movie in the movie theater. I was 15 years old, and I went on a date with a girl to go see this movie. I'll never forget. And I remember we're there, and I don't know, the movie's maybe an hour in, and she's like, you brought me to a movie with a bunch of kids running around in caves looking for treasure. Needless to say, we didn't get a second date. So, but I always remember that. But The Goonies has endured. I think it's one of those things that you look back very fondly on this time with a movie like this. And I mean, if you're looking back to your youth, and I hope the judges are looking back on their youth when they look at our lists. Who wouldn't be inspired as a kid to look for treasure? Like, it's just such a childish thing to want to do. So The Goonies is my pick. So I like it. I'm gonna go with that.
So I've seen The Goonies. I saw it in the theater. I've seen it on video a bunch of times. I never really cared for it. I don't know, just something about it. I was like, it was just okay. But I know there's a whole generation, and honestly, Chris, it's people who are a little older than me, people who are sort of more your generation, that seem to hold this movie in this incredible esteem, and they hold it up and go, The Goonies, this is it, man. This was me. I just never felt that way. I enjoyed it, but it was no Back to the Future. Let me just put it that way. It's like The Goonies was I don't even say a great movie. I would say The Goonies was a good movie, but to me, it wasn't a great movie. Honestly, I have it on my list. It was literally my number 6 movie pick. Wow. So the fact that you pulled it, I'm like, good. Saves me from having to think about that in my 6th pick. Okay. I'm going to go to music because you've already got 2 out of 3 movies. So I'm kind of hoping that now that gives me a little freedom to come back to movies when I think it's best for me. Just like with sports draft, right? You drafted all your pitchers. Fine. Great. I'm going to go to music.
Yep.
Now, in the previous draft, I made a big deal about drafting the number 1 song of the year and the number 1 song of the next year that was released from the year that we drafted. I am not drafting the number 1 song of the year with this pick, which is not to say that I won't do that. I'm actually picking a song that finished a little bit lower on the top 10, but wasn't number 1. But I think when you look back in 1985 and you ask people like, what was your favorite song? What song was the most memorable to you? What song sort of had the most lasting impact? It was Money for Nothing by Dire Straits.
Great pick. And the thing with the music this year is that if you look at, like you're mentioning that, like the top of the charts, if you look at the sort of the Billboard year-end charts, on the top 10, the top 5 songs were all released in 1984. Yeah. So that takes it right off, because our rule is this song had to be on an album that was released in 1985.
Yeah.
And none of them were. So Money for Nothing, though, oh my God, that is a good pick, because, like you say, that's indicative of the year 1985. And you're obviously a fan of the song.
This is one of my all-time favorite songs. And when we did our favorite songs ever, I can't believe I overlooked this. Honestly, this was on my short list of my top 5. It definitely makes my top 10. I love the song. I love that. Again, it came out in June 1985, and by then I had moved away from my hometown, new city, making new friends, making new memories, and I was just getting it. So we've established many times that I'm a huge 80s music video nut. I love everything about music videos. When we moved from Toronto to this small rural town, one of the things my parents did to sort of help keep the kids a little bit, from being angry and ticked off was they got every cable channel that was possibly available, because coming from Toronto, you had all these TV channels, and then we went to this rural and they're like, you have the local channel and that's it. So my parents are like, look, we're not out to get you guys. We're going to buy every cable channel that's available. And one of the channels we got was Much Music, which we never had before.
It was a pay channel when it first came out.
It was a pay channel.
Yeah.
And I remember getting it, and that was when I fell in love with music videos. We moved away and I didn't have a lot of friends, and I spent a lot of time in front of the TV, and suddenly I have the music video channel. And it's like, oh my God, these songs are great. Oh my God, there's visuals to go with these songs. And just the video for Money for Nothing is groundbreaking. By today's standards, it's super cheese, but it has like the computer animated graphics combined with the live band footage. And then there's like animation over the band. Like they got the headbands and the guitars are all like glowing and stuff in the video. This is this is a memorable video. It was definitely nominated for a bunch of MTV Music Video Awards. I don't know how many it won. Unfortunately, I don't have that. It was, let's see, Best Rock Performance Duo, Group or Vocal, nominated for Record of the Year, nominated for Song of the Year, MTV Music Awards, nominated for 11 awards for video, including Video of the Year and Best Group. Like, it was a great song. It was a great video. It was the right place, the right time, the right, and sometimes it's just, that's half the battle is being in the right place, the right time. And this song just hit it on so many levels. And that's part of the reason it's so memorable. It was parodied by Weird Al Yankovic, where it was a Beverly Hillbillies was the parody. I mean, if Weird Al parodies your song, your song has made it into the pop culture zeitgeist. And like this song, solid number one of my all-time favorite songs, definitely one of my all-time favorite songs from 1985. I have no bones about picking this as my number one. And I thought, if you get Back to the Future, the movie, which you did, I need this song or I am blown out of the water. So I'm glad I got it. This is my number one music pick.
If you look back on it now, the video for this song seems a little bit low tech, but let me tell you, when it came out, the computer graphics were like groundbreaking.
Yeah.
Like the robots and the 3D images. And it kind of built on the graphics that we saw in The Last Starfighter, which we reviewed not that long ago.
Yeah.
And it really kind of paved the way for CGI as we know it now. Like this was probably the first time they ever showed humans in CGI form in pop culture.
Yeah.
Like it was, it was a good pick. And I
mean, sorry, go ahead.
No, and I was going to say, and you're right. Like you wanted to kind of sew up another category, which I understand because I got Back to the Future. I had a whole backup plan if I didn't win the coin toss, because I thought you're going to take Back to the Future. This is the way I want to go with it. And I think sewing up a song is a really good way to do that. So good pick.
Yeah. And I mean, this is from, not that this really weighs into it, because obviously I picked the song, I get the song I picked, but it's from the Brothers in Arms album from Dire Straits, which was a huge album. It had five hit singles released off it, including So Far Away, Money for Nothing, we just talked about, Brothers in Arms, Walk of Life, and a song called Your Latest Trick, which I'm not really that familiar with, but the other four are solid picks. One of my good buddies, Brothers in Arms, is his all-time favorite song, hands down, 100%, never wavers. So it's like, this album was just revolutionary for the time, and Money for Nothing was just like the icing on the cake for it. So this is a solid pick. I'm very happy with this pick.
Yeah, no, I like that. I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to go back to the well again here, I think.
You can sew up movies in the first round?
I think I'm going to go back and take another movie. I know that sounds crazy. I usually like to spread things out, but
I think I know where you're going with this.
I like the draft. I like letting the draft come to me, and so I think I'm going to go with The Breakfast Club.
Yep. That was next on my pick.
Yeah, I want to take that away from you too. So it's partly strategy as well. There's still some really good movies out there, but I think I'm going to do that. I think that's going to really sew things up for me. Breakfast Club. If you go back to the very first episode of this podcast, I had mentioned how The Breakfast Club was sort of the quintessential movie of Generation X, and it really was. I remember I didn't see this movie when it first came out. I didn't see it in the movie theater, and I heard about it, and then it came on the movie channel, and I watched it, and I was like, why did it take me like a year to watch this movie? Like, it's so good. And it just spoke to me. It had something to say. And the thing is that all these years later, like I haven't shown it to my son yet. You know, I just show him Stroker Ace. But at some point, I'm going to show him this movie. I think I'm going to maybe even wait just till he gets into high school when he was kind of like that same age. And I honestly think it'll speak to him as strongly as it did to me. I think it's timeless. So I think it's going to really resonate with the judges. And I think it's an important, when you look back on 1985, Breakfast Club. So I'm going to sew up movies.
Wow.
So now you can just leave movies.
I was going to say, I'm a little surprised you went movie, considering how they're, but in all fairness, I was putting my list together and now my wife's one of the judges. So I'm very cognizant of, I don't want to influence her decision and I don't want her advice as much as I would love to have her advice, because I think that would help my picks. But I sort of casually commented to her today. I was like, the song category for 1985 is ridiculously strong.
It is.
Normally I get the list to around 10 and then I narrow it to 6 because we need 3 and 3 and maybe a wild card. My song list is like 20 songs deep. And I'm like, if I have to take song 20, I'm still going to be happy. This is a very, very strong song year, in my opinion, with the exception of Money for Nothing was a clear number 1 in my mind, which is why I had to jump on it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, I don't necessarily fault you for taking the movies, because I don't think that some years it's like there's 5 movies and if you don't get one of those 5, you're done. But I think songs is so broad that sewing up the movies was a good pick for you.
Mm-hmm. We'll see how it works out. So, well, over to you.
Knowing I don't have to go back to movies, I'm going to TV shows. And if I say to you, Dorothy, Rose, Blanche, and Sophia,
right,
you know right away that I'm talking about The Golden Girls.
Great pick.
Premiered in September 1985. This show ran for 7 seasons from 85 to 92, and it ran 177 episodes. It was a huge hit. I think, and I may be wrong with this, I think it was sort of a surprise hit. I don't think people expected it to be the phenomenon that it was. And I do absolutely not think people expected that all these years later, it would still be as big a deal as it is. Like, for some reason, The Golden Girls has had a remarkable resurgence in pop culture in the last few years. And now, when this came out, I was 11 years old. So a lot of the things that they talked about on this show made no sense to me. I couldn't relate to it. My parents were not the same age as these characters. I was certainly not the same age as these characters. But it was still a quality show. And I can remember watching it with my parents. My mom and I used to watch a lot of the same TV shows. So I remember watching it and enjoying it. The show ran forever and we enjoyed it. And just it became a part of pop culture in the late 80s. And it's just never gone away. And even now in 2021, it is still remarkably beloved by people who are our age and by the younger people. Because I think that a lot of what was depicted in this show was a lot of themes and ideas about older people and older women specifically that still resonate, that have never really been addressed in any other show and in any other pop culture that has applied so broadly. And I think it's an underserved audience. It's an underserved area where there are a remarkable number of women, that are seniors, that are in that age group that the Golden Girls were supposed to be, that are not represented on TV. And that's the one thing I hear from people often who are not, as a white male, I don't have this problem, but as a lot of other people, it's like, I don't see myself represented on TV and movies. I don't see people of color. I don't see women. I don't see LGBT community represented on screen. It's like, this was sort of one of those cases where it's like, this was one of the very first times that older women were represented on TV in prime time on a national audience and spoke about issues related to their demographic. And it still holds up. So this is my number 1 pick, hands down. I'm glad I got a chance to get it. I mean, The Breakfast Club was a good movie pick, but honestly, I think you missed out by not grabbing The Golden Girls.
Yeah, I mean, The Golden Girls was the best TV show that debuted in that year. So that's a good pick. I think I'm also going to go with the TV show. And the thing was, around this time, like, family sitcoms were all the rage. Like, you had, Family Ties, and the Cosby Show was the number 1 show. It came out, the year previous. But I'm going to go with one that I always enjoyed this show. And I always thought it was good. And that's Growing Pains. Did you ever watch that show?
I did. I watched every episode and it's on my list, but honestly, It was my number 5 pick, so I'm glad
so
you
that
pulled
works
it
out
now.
good for you. I'm going to go with it. I thought it was good, and to me, it resonates with me in terms of 1985, and that's what the goal of this list is to put together things that represent that year in pop culture, and Growing Pains definitely fits the bill. So that's what I'm going to go with.
Okay.
Sorry,
I'm writing this down now. I wasn't surprised you went with TV, but I was a little surprised you went with that TV.
Go figure.
Okay, so
it's all how we rank them, right?
Yeah. Okay, so you don't have a song. So I kind of think I need to delve into the song again just to try and really stick it to you, because you've really got a strong movie group. So, there's a lot. So, wow. I'm not really sure where to go next with this one. Okay. I'm going to go with Like a Virgin by Madonna as my number 2. Nope, sorry. That came out in 1984.
That came out the year before, so you can't pick that one.
I even have that written down, 1984. Why did I still have it on my pick list? Okay, hold on then. Okay. Earlier, before we recorded this show, I was listening to my Sirius XM radio app. And I already had my lists fully locked down. And then a song came on, and I thought, this is a great song. And I happened to glance over, and it's with Sirius, it always tells you the name of the song, the artist, and the year it came out, and it shows you the album cover. And I looked over, and it said 1985, and I'm like, are you kidding me? That's not on my list. And I went to the internet, and sure enough, it came out in 1985. I am going with Sussudio by Phil Collins.
Ooh, good pick.
Came out in 1985. February 1985 was the album release date.
It was on No Jacker Required, right?
Yeah, which is, man, a phenomenal album. But yeah, I was surprised I had overlooked it, because I fully expected to, like, again, I've got my list sort of locked down, and I was like, wow, how did I overlook Phil Collins? Like, that was a huge album, a huge song. And I mean, Phil Collins already a well-known name between his career in Genesis, and he had already put out Face Value with In the Air Tonight. So, I mean, this is a solid pick for me. I'm happy with this pick. Okay. My number 2 song pick, my number 4 pick overall, Sussudio by Phil Collins.
Nice. I like it. I'm going to go with a song as well. I mentioned back on episode 1, we talked about our favorite movie from Gen X that represents Gen X. And we also talked about the song that best represents Gen X. And that's what I'm going to go with here. And it's from one of my movie picks. And that's Don't You Forget About Me.
Good pick. It's a solid song. Now, honestly, Chris, this is one of the debates I've been having since we started this movie draft. If a movie has a song associated with the movie, are you better off to try and lock up both the song and the movie? Or if you get the movie, should I grab the song? And if you grab the song, should I grab the movie, just to try and split the vote? Because we did this with the first one we did, and I think, if I remember correctly, one of us had Beverly Hills Cop, and then I took the song from Beverly Hills Cop, and I mean, I ended up losing, so it might have been me for both. And so 1985 has a ridiculous amount of great songs from movie soundtracks. So I was really unsure how to play this. So I actually had Don't You Forget About Me. Originally, I had it as my number 1 pick, but I thought, if Chris gets the movie, I'm going to stay away from it. And so I'm kind of glad you picked it, but at the same time, I'm like,
it was my number
John
1
Hughes
pick.
fans, I'm going to get kind of screwed here. So
it was my number 1 pick for songs. And like I said, because it represents Gen X better than any other song, because it's in the quintessential Gen X movie. It was released on February the 20th, 1985. It wasn't really popular when it first came out, but I think it's endured over the years. And the thing is, if you think of another movie that came out the next year in 1986, Pretty in Pink was a John Hughes movie.
Yep. There's
the scene when they're at the prom, when they're dancing in the prom, and if you watch it very closely, they're dancing to "If You Leave" by Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark.
Yep. OMD. Yep.
But if you actually watch it, they're not dancing in time to the music.
Of course they're not,
because they used this song to dance to, which has different BPMs. So anyway, this song, oh my God, this song is just so good. It encapsulates everything about Gen X, and it definitely encapsulates everything about 1985. So that's why I'm going to pick it. So I'm going with that one. Okay.
All right.
Over to you.
Okay. So I'm going to lean, so I got 2 choices. I'm going with the music. I'm going with song. I'm going to wrap up the song category. I can either take Power Love by Huey Lewis and the News from the Back to the Future soundtrack, which is literally my number one all-time favorite song, which when we did our top 5 favorites, this was on my list.
When we did our favorite songs from the 80s, this was on your list. I think it was number 1.
It was.
So
it was my number.
This is my
list, right? This is literally my all-time favorite song. I love Huey Lewis and the News. I've seen them in concert. Back to the Future.
How can you not pick it?
But you have Back to the Future movie. So I don't know if this is going to help me or not. But at the same time, if I don't pick it and you do, that's now 2 movies with 2 soundtracks according. And I'm like, but I have another sort of wild card pick for song that I'm like, I think would push me over the edge. So I may have to just leave it and hope it's there come my 10th pick. So I got to go with it. Huey Lewis in the News, Power Love. Don't take money. Don't take fame. Don't need no credit cards to ride this train. I'm picking Power Love by Huey Lewis in the News.
Great pick. I mean, if he wouldn't pick it, I'd definitely get in there and take it. Well, I don't know what to do now. Do I take another song? I think I'm going to go back to TV. I think I got to take a TV show. And I think I'm going to go with, I wasn't ever a huge fan of this show, but I think it's endured enough. And I think it's representative of the time. So I'm going to go with MacGyver.
Yeah, that was clearly the next pick.
I think it's got to be, so I'm going to go with MacGyver. Like I said, did you ever watch that show?
I did. I didn't really care for it. It didn't really do it for me. And I know they've rebooted it and they did the Saturday Night Live parody MacGruber, which was, in my mind, stupid.
Dumb.
But I know MacGyver ran for a lot of seasons. It had a lot of fans, and it's become a part of the social norm. It's become a part of pop culture. Whenever somebody makes something work without using the expected way to do it, you go, oh, you MacGyvered that. Like, it's literally a part of our nomenclature. So for that reason alone, it's got a lot of value. So that was why I was going to pick it. It's a good pick from you, especially since I wrapped up Golden Girls. That was a solid pick from you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, over to you.
All right, so I've wrapped.
You got to go TV now because you need 2 movies and 2 TV shows. Movies are wrapped.
You've
up
already
for me,
done your movies. You've got 2 TVs, but so I got to go TV. So you picked MacGyver. So next on my list, I'm gonna go with, and this might be a little bit of an unconventional pick, but since you already picked Growing Pains, I think I got to lean on the sitcoms a little bit. And again, I think I got to go for. What was big in 1985, maybe not as popular as your show, but, debuting in 1985, running for 118 episodes. I think I need to go with Mr. Belvedere.
That's a good pick. Yeah. Bob Uecker. I like that.
Yeah.
Pick. Yep.
Yeah.
I would have picked it. So
this is another one of those shows. It ran 6 seasons and, you look at it critically, it was garbage. But at the time, I was a very young kid. This was a show that ran when I was, 11 to 16 years old. I was in, weekends I was home. I think this show ran like a Friday or Saturday night, which is usually like the kiss of death for a sitcom. But as a young kid, I liked it. It's one of those ones where it's like traditional family values, the idea that the live-in servant of Mr. Belvedere can provide wisdom to the family. It's become like a cliche of sitcoms. And I think it was this idea of, it's the same idea as Who's the Boss, which I think you picked in our previous draft, where it's traditionally a maid or a nanny would be a woman. And this was a time where it's like, oh no, this is this gentleman. And in this case, it's this British gentleman and he provides, the wisdom to the family. And I liked it. It's kind of corny. It's kind of cheesy, but Bob Uecker's great despite his terrible acting. Like he has charisma, he has screen presence, and the guy who played Mr. Belvedere was pretty good too. So it's held up. I think over the years, it's still something that people remember and recognize. So I gotta go with Mr. Belvedere as my next TV pick.
Oh, I like it. Good pick. I think I need to go back and get a song here because I need 2 of those. Although you already have songs.
I'm totally done songs. So yeah.
So I guess I could.
You should just go with TV and wrap it up.
Yeah, I guess I should just go with TV and just
then you got songs and I got movies. We just stay out of each other's way.
So I guess I'm going to go with. Oh God, I'm torn between 2. I'm going to go with Moonlighting.
Yeah, that was clearly the next pick.
I was a big fan of that show when it came out, and Bruce Willis, you just knew he was going to be a star. The chemistry that he had on that show with Sybil Shepherd. Oh God, that was a good show. I think it's overlooked, but I think if you go back in time to 1985, it's representative of that year. So I'm gonna go with that pick. So yeah.
That's a good pick. Again, as a younger person, it wasn't a show. I remember watching it occasionally and just thinking, it's okay. But like so many other shows, it's that man-woman character. Will they? Won't they? Are they going to get together? There's that sexual tension. There's that chemistry. And once they got together, it's like the show went way downhill real fast, which was unfortunate. But the premise was pretty good. And the theme song was pretty good. And Bruce Willis was pretty good. So there's a lot to like about this. That was a pretty solid pick considering we're in our 7th picks here.
Yep.
Okay.
So you can pick, you need 2 movies and you need a TV show. So what are you going to throw at us?
Okay. Well, and you've done all of those. So it doesn't matter what order I do these in now because you can't get in my way.
That's right.
Okay. So let me just recap. So for movies, you've got Back to the Future, Goonies, and The Breakfast Club, which you picked as your 1, 2, 3. I have
Rocky 4.
Rocky 4. That's the only one I have. Okay. Well, Sylvester Stallone was a big deal in the 1980s, so I'm going to go with another Sylvester Stallone movie.
Yes.
I'm going to go with Rambo.
First Blood Part 2.
Part 2.
Nice.
Yep. Came out in May 1985, and man, you want to talk about an actor who's having a good year. Stallone puts out Rambo in May and Rocky 4 in November. This is as good as it gets for a movie actor in any year, let alone the 1980s. Like, he is the apex absolute #1 movie star, ranking in the bucks, getting one of the other episodes, one of the other podcasts I listen to is called The Rewatchables, and one of their categories is Apex Mountain. Like, when was a person at the apex of their career? Let me tell you, Stallone was at his apex in 1985 after he put out these 2 movies. These got to be 2 of his absolute best movies as far as dollars and cents. This is it. So I'm going to just lock it up with my Sylvester Stallone love, and hopefully some of the judges are Stallone lovers. So I'm going to go with that as my next movie pick.
Well, and you mentioned Rocky 4 as being a big thing at this time because, the jingoism with America. But Rambo First Blood Part 2 was even more so. Because at the time, it was only 10 years or so before when the United States lost the war in Vietnam. So what better way to kind of pump up, the American psyche than to have this movie about this guy that goes back to Vietnam and kicks some butt, no, that's a good pick. I like that one. So I guess I've got to go with a song. In 1985, charity concerts and charity songs were all the rage.
This is my wild card pick.
Yeah.
Stay away.
And there was Live Aid, and especially there was the USA for Africa with the song We Are the World. And that's what I'm going to go with. It was written by Michael Jackson and Lionel Richie, produced by Quincy Jones. The thing was, it required everybody to check their ego at the door and just produce this quality song that would help make the world a better place. And, oh man, I've always been kind of conflicted by charity concerts and charity songs. I'll just be honest. I mean, they do good things, don't get me wrong. But the thing is, it requires a financial contribution from the general public, right? The rich people put out a song and the poor people all line up to pay for it. And the money goes to charity. Now, although it's the poor people, or at least the general public, that give the money, it's the artists, the rich people that get all the praise. So you know what I'm saying? Like I'm kind of conflicted on that, but I'm still going to go with We Are the World as my pick for this, but I just wanted to just get that little jab in there. So
yeah. Okay, let me ask you a little armchair quarterbacking in the middle of the draft.
Okay.
This was the other song I was considering. This or Back to the Future, Power Love. Honestly, just between you and me and all the listeners.
Sure.
If those were the 2 on the board, which do you feel was a stronger pick?
I think We Are the World is a stronger pick. I mean, I personally, I think Power of Love is a better song, but I think We Are the World might resonate more with the judges. And that's really what I care about because I just want to win.
And that was my thought too, was We Are the World is definitely a snapshot in a moment in time. And nothing says 1985 more than the Live Aid concert. So that was why I wanted it.
Yeah.
Especially since you already had the Back to the Future movie. Now, in fairness, again, if I had picked We Are the World, would you have taken Power Love as one of your songs?
Probably not.
Damn it.
Yeah, probably not.
I was kind of hoping We Are the World might slide through to the wild card, but I knew better.
It's too bad because I think just when you look at it on a piece of paper, Power of Love doesn't jump out. When I hear the song, I'm like, God, that's a good song. Power of Love is such an amazing song. But when I just see it on a piece of paper, I just don't think it resonates. So that's why I stood away.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, music is one of those things that when I hear a melody or I hear a song, it invokes a memory. And I know for some people that is absolutely the case. Other people's not so. And people sometimes are like, oh, when I smell the smell, it reminds me. For me, it's always music triggers memory more than anything else for me. And the Power of Love just triggers a memory for me more than anything else. So I kind of, that was why I didn't, like, I was struggling, but at the same time, I had to go with my gut. I had to go with my heart, even though, just like you said, I think We Are the World might resonate better with the judges as a snapshot from 1985. I couldn't, in my right conscious, pass on the Power of Love. I'm like, yeah.
That's good. Yep. Okay, over to you.
Okay.
You can
what
take
do I need here?
You need a TV show and a movie, and then I need
movie.
a song, and then we're going to do our personal picks.
All right, so let me just move my song list right out of the way because those are done. And you need one more, but I don't care what yours is. I think my TV pick's gonna be a little harder. So let's look at the movies. Oh, that's not much better. Okay. Well, I mean, I put my list together like I often do based on. I went to the list of like what were the top grossing movies of '85, eliminating any of the movies that were released in '84 and spilled into '85. And this is still a very long and a very strong list. Mm-hmm. But I have two Stallone movies. We'll call them action movies, you know, pump up the audience kind of movies. I think I need something that's a little bit lighter. Mm-hmm. So since you have Back to the Future, I'm going to take Michael J. Fox's other 1985 offering, which is definitely not as strong, and that's Teen Wolf.
Oh, yeah. Little movie, but I think that'll resonate with the judges.
Again, I think that's one that in retrospect, people are like, oh, yeah, Teen Wolf. And I mean, it's had a little bit of a resurgence. I think it was the CW did like a modern updated reboot of Teen Wolf. I remember there being a Teen Wolf cartoon.
There was a sequel. Teen Wolf.
They did Teen Wolf 2.
I always called it Teen Wolf also because it was Teen Wolf TOO. Teen Wolf 2.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, Teen Wolf has had a resurgence in the pop culture because there's been like certain nitpicks about the movie and goofs. There's a scene at the end where there's a guy, like there's the audience after the basketball game jumping up and down. There's a guy that has his penis out. And literally, if you watch the movie, you can see it if you know where to look. So it's one of those ones that I think was a decent movie on its face. I mean, it was what it was. It's a movie about a teenager who's a werewolf who plays basketball, which is kind of goofy on its face. But I know you were in love with the female star of the movie.
Susan Ursity was like my all-time teenage crush.
Yeah.
She was Boof in this movie. I loved her. I still love her to this day.
Yeah.
She was just amazing.
Yeah. So no, I think because I have Rocky and Rambo already, I definitely needed something with it's like I've eaten my vegetables. Now I need just like a little wafer to clean the palate. And I think Teen Wolf is going to do that for me. So that's my number 3 movie pick.
That was going to be my personal pick. So good for you for stealing that from me. Okay. So I got to go with a song. You mentioned something that I thought was really interesting and resonates with me. The fact that music can take you back in time, you know? And this song for me immediately takes me back to 1985. Hopefully it'll take the judges back too. And that is Walking on Sunshine by Katrina and the Waves. Wow. Remember that one?
Not even on my list. Yes, I remember it, but not even on my list.
The thing was, because it only peaked at number 9 on the Billboard charts during it. It was like number 75 on the year-end charts. But none of that matters. Because regardless of the fact that it wasn't a big hit when it came out, this song, it's just got something about it. The high energy, there's the catchiness of it all, the whole one-hit wonder thing going on. I think this one will resonate. I think when you think back and you hear that song, you think of that song, you think back to 1985. So even though it wasn't a huge, huge hit at the time, I think it's endured and I think it helps represent the year. So that's what I'm going to go with.
All right. So I need a TV show to wrap up my 3, 3, and 3, right?
You do.
So I have 2 TV shows left on my list. They're both animated. And I fell down this rabbit hole in our very first year where I picked the Transformers cartoon as my wildcard pick. I don't necessarily think that helped me as much as I think that was absolutely reflective of the year we were drafting. And this is another year where if you grew up in the 80s, cartoons, like after school cartoons, were a huge deal. And I mean, for boys, because who are we kidding? Most of the cartoons were geared towards boys. Now there were a few cartoons geared toward girls, but I think for me, I'm like, I've got 2 cartoons on my list, and I don't think either of them are on your list. So it's like, I'm not really sure what to do. I know I'm going to lose the movie category, I think, because you got Back to the Future. So I really need to pull it up in these other ones. So I'm going to go with the Thundercats cartoon that debuted in January 1985 as my last TV show pick.
Yeah, well, that's a good pick. I remember that one.
Again, it's another one that has had 2 reboots. They did like a more serious for mature audiences reboot of the cartoon like maybe about 10 years ago, and it was decent, but it didn't get the audience they wanted, so it only got 1 season. And then in the last couple of years, they've done another reboot of the Thundercats where it's been more of a cartoon for a much younger audience, and the episodes are only like 10 to 15 minutes long, sort of like in the same idea as Teen Titans Go, if anyone watches that. And those episodes are a little easier to digest, but again, they're very clearly designed for a much younger audience, whereas this show that came out in the 80s was like so many, like G.I. Joe, like Transformers. It was like for those teenage boys, like that was the main audience. So the stories sort of were at that level of maturity. And if you grew up in the 80s, like I did, and you were a boy, like I am, these cartoons have a very strong place in your memory. So I'm going to go with Thundercats as my number 9 pick, my third TV show.
So it's over to me. My 10th pick is my personal pick. I know that you do not like this movie. I don't care. I love this movie, and it's from 1985, and that's Remo Williams' The Adventure Begins.
Nice.
That's my
not even on my
pick.
Not even on my 1985.
I knew it wouldn't be on yours, and I don't care because the personal pick is the personal pick. And I love that movie. And to me, when I watch it, we reviewed it on the podcast, previously. It just takes me back to 1985. It's a throwback. Oh God. No, that's my personal pick for sure. My personal pick would have been Teen Wolf, but you sniped it on me, so I'm going to go with Remo Williams.
Yep.
Over to you.
So, okay. This is the advantage of picking second, is now I can sort of verbalize my thought process because you're done your picks. So on the one hand, I could take a movie, and Real Genius, which came out in 1985, is one of my sort of guilty pleasure movies that I love. So I could definitely pick that, and that would work. Brewster's Millions, another movie that came out in 85. Not a very popular movie, but again, a lot of personal love for that movie.
Me too. Me too. I love that movie.
But again, I'm like, and then as I've already said a couple of times on this episode, the songs from 85 were just so good. There are so many great 1985 songs. And I really feel that no matter what movie I take as a wild card, it's not going to necessarily tip the scales. I figure the songs for me are where I can really sort of get some dollar value. So I'm going to go, and now I'm debating between 2. The one is a Canadian pick, which is Never Surrender by Corey Hart.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Which I love. But I think the one I'm going to go with is a song that really I fell in love with when I heard it in 85, and it's had a lot of staying power. It was featured in the movie Real Genius, which I just talked about, which I might have taken as my personal pick. But I'm going to go with Everybody Wants to Rule the World by Tears for Fears from 1985. Yeah, I'm a little surprised that didn't make our top 6, but it's one of those songs, Tears for Fears, an iconic 80s band. And it was a huge hit that summer. I mean, even though it came out in February, it had staying power. And like I said, I moved in the summer of 85 to a new town, and really I didn't have any friends right away. So it was what's on the radio, what's on the TV, what's in the theater. And this is just one of those songs that was a huge hit. And whenever I hear it, it just reminds me of that summer, being in this new place and experiencing these new things, which ultimately helped really shape and define who I am. And it's one of these songs that I love. It's been covered a couple of times. The cover version by the artist Lorde is phenomenal. You want to know how to do a good cover? Listen to Everybody Wants to Rule the World by Lorde. You'll never hear this song the same way again, and you'll regret that Tears for Fears did it the way they did it. But their version is awesome in its own right. That's my wildcard pick.
Love it. I mean, so we did it. We made it through the draft. It's great. I think we're gonna have to send this off to the judges and see what they say. We're gonna come back next week and see who won. It's time for you to make a big comeback. So hopefully you're gonna win this one.
Well, I think Back to the Future gives you a huge leg up, but I'm feeling very confident with my pick. Last time we did this, I was like, that's it. I don't have a chance. You got Raiders, and I knew it was over from the very first pick. This time, I don't want to say it was over from the very first pick. Mm-hmm. I feel I was coming from a place, I was coming from behind, but I think my picks have been solid. So I'm holding out hope that I have a chance this time around. I had a whole strategy in place. I figured you would win the flip and you will take Back to the Future, and I knew what I was going to do the rest of the way, and it just made it even easier for me. But all right, on that note, let's have some. Hang on. What, one more thing before we go? Yeah? Do you want to recap our picks before we move on to the Fun with Caveman? Yeah, I guess we can. I mean, okay. I've got, so for my movies, I have Back to the Future, The Goonies, and The Breakfast Club. You have Rocky IV, Rambo First Blood Part 2, and Teen Wolf. For my TV shows, I got Growing Pains, MacGyver, and Moonlighting. Whereas you have The Golden Girls, Mr. Belvedere, and Thundercats. And then for songs, I've got Don't You Forget About Me, We Are the World, and Walking on Sunshine. And you have Money for Nothing, Susudio, and Power of Love. And our personal picks, mine is Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins, and yours is Everybody Wants to Rule the World. I love my song picks. I'm a little worried about the other categories. Yeah, I think I might be able to take this one down. So let's have some
Fun with Caveman.
All right, so Derek, we did 1985 as our movie this year. So I thought it would only be fitting that we did some pop culture trivia from 1985. Easy one, okay? You gonna be able to get this? This was an important and impressionable pop culture year. I think I'm going to do pretty well on this. You mentioned now that I've said that, I'm going to just get crushed, I'm sure. Nah, you'll do fine. You mentioned already this was an important year, for in your pop culture life, so you're going to do well. Okay, so what movie took home the top prize with the Academy Award for Best Picture in 1985, Derek? I don't know. Amadeus? Man. No idea. Out of Africa. Sure. One. Okay. Oh, that was that crappy movie you picked the last time we did the draft. No, you did A Golden Pond. Sorry, all those old people movies all just blur together for me. Can you name, so Out of Africa won Best Picture. Can you name any of the other 4 films nominated for Best Picture that year? Probably not. Let me think. What was the year? 1984? Yep. It was movies from 84 that were awarded in 85. No, 1985. Movies that came out in 1985. Came out in 85. Yeah, they would have held the Oscars in like February of 86 or something, but it was for movies from 1985. So Out of Africa won Best Picture. Can you name just one, of the other 4 movies that were nominated for Best Picture that year? Prizzi's Honor. Yes, that was one of them. The Color Purple, Kiss of the Spider Woman, and Witness were the other movies. Wow. Okay, so I've seen Witness. I've not seen any of those other movies. And the only reason I knew Prizzi's Honor is, again, in the town we moved to, there was literally one movie theater with one screen, and every 2 weeks they would get a new movie. And I remember riding my bicycle past it, and there was the poster for Prizzi's Honor, and I kept thinking, that movie looks dumb. That's the only reason I remember. What was the name of the town you moved to? I'd rather not say. Okay. What film led the domestic box office with $190 million in 1985? Got to be Back to the Future. All right, follow-up question. Who directed Back to the Future? Robert Zemeckis, one of my favorite directors. What country's government banned Back to the Future because of its use of time travel, and it was considered to be a disrespectful portrayal of history? Wow. So I know in the movie they rip off some terrorists from like some Middle Eastern country to make the time machine. So that's where I thought this was going to go. But I have to think this is one of the communist countries. So it's got to either be China, Russia, or North Korea. Let's just go with the odds and say China. Correct. All right. So Back to the Future was the highest grossing film of the year. We've established that. So what was the number 2 film of the year at the domestic U.S. box office? Ooh, I should know this. I've been looking at the lists for the last couple of days. Was it? Ooh, it was either Beverly Hills Cop 2, which came out in late 84, or The
Goonies. I'm going to go with Beverly Hills Cop.
Yes, you had said Beverly Hills Cop 2, so I thought you corrected yourself.
No. That one's from later. Yeah.
All right, so the following actors, Derek, were nominated for Best Supporting Actor in 1985. Okay.
Oh my God. Okay.
Klaus Maria Brandauer, William Hickey, Robert Loggia, Don Amici, and Eric Roberts. What actor took home the gold?
I actually know the answer. It's Don Amici for Cocoon.
Yes, it was.
I don't know who any of those other people are or what movies they were in. None of them.
Klaus Maria Brandauer was in Out of Africa. William Hickey was Prizzi's Honor. Robert Loggia was from Jagged Edge. And Eric Roberts, Runaway Train.
Never seen it. Okay, sorry. Eric Roberts I've actually heard of. But wow, I never seen any of those movies. I've only even heard of one of those movies.
Man, this is supposed to be like your wheelhouse right here. Although you did know Don Amici was in Cocoon with apparently my spirit animal, Wilford Brimley.
I almost picked Cocoon as my wild card pick for the movies, but
that's
I'm
a good movie.
Nah.
God, it's a good movie. God,
it's fun. It's fun.
Okay. Swatch watches were all the rage back in 1985. So within $5, how much did a Swatch watch cost back in 1985, Derek?
Wow.
Within $5.
So my wife actually owns like 4 Swatch watches. I bought her the last 2 because that's the only kind of watch she'll wear. In 1985, I gotta think they were reasonably cheap. So I'm gonna sort of hedge my bets of it and say 11.
I'm sorry, they were $29.99.
Wow,
they were expensive. Yeah, they were pricey. It was like it was like a prestigious thing to have.
That's got to be like $100 in 1985 money.
Yeah,
that's craziness.
All right, Billy Crystal. He shot to stardom on Saturday Night Live by portraying a real life person and using the catchphrase, "You look marvelous." What real life Argentinian American actor was Billy Crystal portraying? He would also often say, "It's better to look good than it is to feel good." Who was he portraying?
I can picture the sketch clear as day. I had no idea that was based on a real person. None whatsoever. Oh boy, hold on. Give me a quick second here. Let me think of it. I'm never gonna. If I guess, it'll be some racially insensitive, stereotypical name. So I'm just gonna say I don't know.
Wrong. It was Fernando Lamas.
I was gonna say Fernando, and I'm like, ooh, that might come off a little racist.
It was Lorenzo Lamas' father. And the thing was, that wasn't even my favorite reference to Fernando Lamas on SNL. So back in the 70s, Bill Murray did this Spanish game show spoof called "¿Quién es más macho?" It meant who is more macho. Okay. And they would give the contestants these 2 names. And the contestants would have to guess which of the 2 was more macho. Okay. It was like, ¿Quién es más macho? Fernando Lamas or Ricardo Montalban?
Ooh, that's a tough
¿Quién es más
pick.
macho, Lamas or Montalban? It was so funny.
Jeez.
Anyway, okay, so Billy Crystal. He also impersonated another famous ethnic actor on SNL.
Yes.
For this one, he used the catchphrase, etc., etc., etc.
Oh, geez.
I remember
that's not where I thought you were going with this.
No, he did a spoof of the Babe Ruth story, starring this actor. And remember when the kid asked Babe Ruth, "Will you please hit a home run for me?" Billy Crystal, playing this character, says, "I'll hit you a single, a double, a triple, etc., etc., etc." Derek.
Wow.
What Russian-American actor did Billy Crystal portray that died in 1985 from lung cancer?
Jeez. Okay, this is absolutely not the direction I thought this was going in.
I'll give you a hint. He was in The King and I.
Well, I figured that. Was it Yul Brynner?
It was. Very good.
Oh,
yeah.
I thought your question was going to go in the direction where the answer was Sammy Davis Jr.
Oh, no.
So when you said Russian,
that,
I'm like, oh my God. Okay, that's not where I'm going with this one. So I can't believe I pulled that out of my butt. Okay.
So this concert appearance, which took place on July 13th, 1985, has been voted the greatest live performance in the history of rock by BBC's World's Greatest Gigs.
Yep.
Derek, can you name the band and the event?
Yep.
It is widely considered to be the greatest concert appearance.
Yep. Queen at Live Aid. Yes. Queen at Live Aid. hands down.
All right, this 1985 single was named the worst song of all time by Blender, Gentleman's Quarterly, Rolling Stone magazine, and even VHS's special episode, The 50 Most Awesomely Bad Songs Ever. What 1985 single was named the worst song of all time?
Jeez, the worst. We never focus on the worst. We always focus on the best.
I know.
Okay, hold on. Let me give this a minute here. Wow. Honestly, I have no idea. I'm going to take a wild stab in the dark and say, no, I don't even have a wild guess. I have no idea. Done.
It was We Built This City by Starship.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that was on my list of songs to pick. That was the next one on my list.
I made a crack about you last week wanting to pick that song. So there you go. Okay, so although it was a massive worldwide hit, Heart's 1985 single, What About Love? Remember that song?
Oh, I sure do.
That was not an original song by the band Heart. It was a cover song, originally written and performed by what Canadian band, Derek?
Wow. I so see, we learn new things on this podcast. We're not just entertainment, we're educational.
That's right.
I'm going to play the odds on this one and say BTO, Bachman Turner Overdrive.
No, it was Toronto. Remember
Okay.
Toronto? What your daddy don't know. That band. They did that song.
Okay. No, I know them. Believe me. Living in Toronto, I know the band Toronto.
Yeah.
No.
Okay,
I
last
didn't know
question, Derek.
Yeah. Okay.
¿Quiénes más macho? Lamas o Montalban? Lamas o Montalban, ¿quiénes más macho?
Not Montalban, the other guy.
Oh, man, we all know Montalban was Khan. He's more macho.
Yeah. He
Okay.
totally was.
So we are going to pass along our draft list to our esteemed group of judges. And they're going to vote on the winner. And at the beginning of next episode, when we come back, we'll reveal who the winner is of our pop culture fantasy draft for 1985. And don't forget, most importantly of all, the winner will get the possession of the trophy Funko Fonzie. Now, I always mention the episode number at the top of the show. And this week, it's episode 199. So, needless to say, our next episode is a little bit of a milestone for us, Derek. So anyone that's listened to this podcast since our early days, all two of you out there, I'm sure, when we began the show, it was me and Yancey Eaton and our producer Sloth. You can't forget him. And we started this podcast in July of 2016. And next episode, we hit number 200. So Derek, you think we should do something special for our next episode? It's a pretty big accomplishment.
Yeah.
You think about it, 200 episodes means one thing. We can now go into syndication.
Syndication, baby.
That's right. We're going to become
money.
rich. We're going to become rich.
Yeah.
Whenever a TV show hits 200 episodes, they get to go into syndication. We're all going to get royalties, right? So
Nice.
That's going to apply to a free podcast, I'm sure. So what do you think we should do for our 200th episode?
So, Chris, I have some very creative ideas about, remember back when we were younger, they did after school specials and you'd hear the like when they were promoting them, they go, this week on a very special episode. So our 200th episode, I think we can promote as a very special episode of Pop Goes Your World. I have a lot of great ideas on where we can go with this. You and I can talk off air. We'll get something together. And then after our 200th episode, we'll come back and we'll do a couple of movie reviews from 85. And believe me, there are a lot of very strong movies in 85. So those are going to be a lot of fun to watch and review. Even though we've already done a handful of really good ones from 85, there are still a lot to pick from. We'll do our 200th episode. Pardon me. Very special episode of Pop Goes Your World. Yes. We'll do our 200th episode. Then we'll come back and do a couple of 85 movie reviews. And yeah, we'll have a great time. Now, as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, I'm on vacation next week. So we're going to take a couple of weeks off while I take a little personal reflection time. And maybe, I don't know, Chris, we'll try and get a best of episode out if possible.
Sure. I can do that for next week.
And then we'll come back in 2 weeks. We'll do our very special episode of Pop Goes Your World, 200th episode, and we'll go from there.
I think that sounds like a great idea. So I'm looking forward to that. So next week we'll put out the best of episode, and then we'll come back with our 200th very special episode. And until then, this is Chris McBrien on behalf of Derek Myers saying thanks for listening to 199 of these shows so far, and we really appreciate it. This is Pop Goes Your World, the pop culture podcast for the generations.
Thanks for listening to Pop Goes Your World. You can contact Chris and Derek at popgoesyourworld.com. Please take a minute and review the podcast on iTunes or wherever you download and listen to the show.